I think almost the best way of putting it and phrasing it to Google and Samsung at this point is that you have lost essentially this particular customer because what you have done and your sales strategy has been, essentially attempting to deliver Apple iPhone Lite. You you remind me a lot of the Democratic Party's, approach when it has conservative Democrats that target, redder parts of the country so that that maybe these people will vote for a softer version of the Republicans and everything, but that strategy does not have a very good track record at the end of the day, because for the most part the voters will, when faced with a choice between like red and light red at the ballot box, they will choose, red every single time. They'll go for the true dyed in the wool Republican almost every single fucking time. And there's only a handful of exceptions in the whole thing. And this is the same shit that has happened in the United States, and the with its phone markets. When when distinguishing themselves from the iPhone did not work out as you know much as these companies had hoped for, what they started to try to deliver was essentially the same thing Apple was delivering, only on a slightly freer, ecosystem that was more open to experimentation and tinkering. And you know, like they were trying to put the same hardware choices, and they were trying to deliver basically what Apple has been shoving down our unwilling throats. Light, the lighter version of it. And it's kind of like they have this Coke versus Pepsi view of things, where you've ever you've ever been a fan of like Coke or Pepsi, or you've ever tried either of them, you know that the flavors are, that what people are going to favor one or the other, but they don't really taste all that different at the end of the day between the two different companies. If you've had both of them, they're not really all that different. People are just going to have their preferences for one or the other, as far as that's concerned, but they're pretty similar. And you almost never get this third entrant. In a lot of places, they don't sell it, to the point where people like me have had to try to jam, this, which is Dr. Pepper, and to the square peg that people have set up, trying to force you to settle for something other than Dr. Pepper. I mean, I end up smuggling it into a lot of places like movie theaters and everywhere, because they don't fucking carry the drink that I want when I'm in there. And so I find myself in an extraordinary and extreme frustration at this point with with their sales tactics and everything. I mean, you've lost me at this point, and you've lost me because, like I said, you've essentially tried to deliver, exactly what Apple has offered, but in a more friendly package, a more, I guess you could say, like, open ecosystem, but it's still basically the same thing that Apple has been selling for a long time. It's not really all that different. You really haven't tried to distinguish your phones in terms of functionality in any way. You used to. I mean, the past of the Galaxy used to have an SD card slot, and then it got rid of it. It didn't sell as aggressively as Samsung had hoped, and so it just decided, hey, Apple is the most, I guess, sells the best, and I got tired of it. I entered the Android space late. Unfortunately, I had wanted to go over for quite some time. It took a while for the cards to fall into place to make it, possible for me to make the jump. But once I did, I went over to the Pixel 7 Pro as my entrance to it. And by that point, all the magic of Android had been basically sucked out by this, corporate shenanigans that we're basically trying to copy and, Apple and Apple's success. And, you know, in doing this, they have unfortunately validated, the bullshit idea that, the Android is a fucking, Apple person's it's a poor man's Apple phone, like that's really what you've achieved. You've achieved, a cheap knockoff of the real thing. And, the product is stale and unappealing because of that. And, meanwhile, like Sony and Xperia actually came and shook things up and delivered, a pretty stellar camera. And, as well, a gave us a micro SD card slot. And, basically you've all driven me crazy. I'm I'm tired of asking for a change in tactics. I'm tired of having to point this out. I'm tired of basically saying and telling you that if I had wanted to buy an iPhone, I would have bought a fucking iPhone, and to try to shake you out of this stupor. But, unfortunately, it's just it hasn't taken. And, I am at the point now where, like, if Sony doesn't deliver the Xperia for the next few years to the United States, fuck it, I will fucking import that shit, because I don't want what everybody else wants in this country. If that's the case, then color me an individual that wants something different than what they want. And if this was a choice between Coke and Pepsi, and the choice that I want is buttermilk, then fine, that's what I fucking want. Like, I'm done. Do you understand me? Like, I don't care. I want a phone with a micro SD card slot. I want my fucking headphone jack back. Those things matter, and they matter enough to be fucking decisive. Like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of basically being ignored, when I ask you to implement these features. I don't care that the rest of your customers don't give a shit. I don't care. I will not give you my money if you do not deliver the features that I want. I'm done.